Come on, producer. What's going on, everybody? How you doing today on this beautiful thirsty Thursday? It is your boy. It is Guns Picks, and we're hanging out here on a beautiful thirsty Thursday. And if you know who this guy is, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, the guy to the right of me is the Shark at Shark and Sports 88. He decided to join me today, and I appreciate it so much. It is going to be a wonderful show. Shark, how you doing on this Thursday?
Beautiful Thursday, regular Thursday, whatever Thursday it is. Going to be back on here. Obviously, for those of you guys watching here on YouTube, we are starting up this channel, Sports Wagering Network here. We encourage you guys to like and retweet and build this with us as we go to the YouTube route alongside Twitter. Obviously, we've been doing football shows all fall. Football's over, Guns, but I think we're going to go back through that game and rehash a little bit and talk about what happened in that game. I mean, that was an all-time classic, and there was a lot of ins and outs in it. So let's get in there and let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's do it, Pun. Let's go into some NFL talk right now and get it going on this show.
Go, go, go!
And we're going to be going a little bit of the Super Bowl recap here, folks. Just real quick to just let the people know like what our thoughts were on the game before we get into some actual picks. I'll start with you, Shark. So the game ended at 38-35. In favor of Kansas City. I felt like we got kind of robbed of a little bit of a moment with Jalen Hurts at the end, with a 2-minute type of drill for the Eagles. But overall, I think we had 55 minutes worth of great football to watch. What were your thoughts on the game?
Well, first of all, I was clearly wrong on my handicap, and we had gone through this on Sunday, and you won that friendly wager, and I wish I was drinking tonight. I'm not. You're drinking a beautiful Viva Seltzer. I'm having a nice cup of coffee here on a suddenly not so casual Thursday evening, February 16th. But, the first takeaway really is the game was just a classic. It really was. And I just think really at the end of it, I think we should go that direction first. It was a shame that you didn't get to see one final drive from the Eagles. And I do think that call was the right call. So you can't complain about it. But still, from a Hollywood script, from a movie storyline type of game, it is a bit regretful for the fans that we didn't get to see at least one final drive from Jalen Hurts and the boys. And, of course, the game flow was suggesting they probably would have made at least a push to get down into the red zone because obviously coming out in the third and fourth quarter, the Chiefs had all the momentum. But crucial point here, Jalen Hurts 2-yard TD run with 5:15 to go in the fourth quarter plus a 2-point conversion. I think they probably would have scored. So the fan in me, and of course the better in me, but more so the fan in me, and I mention this all the time, I am still a fan. I do like to see the top level of competition. I don't love the fact that there was a holding call and then basically just to lay down at the goal line, run the clock out, kick a field goal. A little anticlimactic for me. I would have loved to see the pushback, but of course that didn't happen. So congratulations to the Chiefs. Congratulations to Chiefs bettors. Congratulations to Chiefs Nation, obviously the center of this beautiful country of ours, and fans worldwide now that Patrick Mahomes and these boys are really becoming, I would say, superstars, almost rock stars, if you want to go that far with it. And I think it's great for the sport, and I'll throw it back to you, Guns, but I do think it's great for the sport to see a developing dynasty. Doesn't matter if you're a fan. Dynasties are good for sports. They are identifiable. There's a villain. Not to say they're literally a villain, but there is a villain, and people come for them. They play up to the moment, and it creates better storylines in the product. And I think you're seeing going forward next year, I think the sports books have Kansas City Chiefs as the favorite already. So here comes your dynasty, and we're going to go that direction. So, Guns, what's going on? Talk to me.
Yeah. So looking at that game and reflecting on exactly what happened in that one, I felt like when we talked on the show, on the Circa Million show, we basically said this is going to be a very close game, and that's what we got. We got exactly what we said was going to happen on this one. Some of the capping kind of went a little bit egregious. I didn't really think that that KC would carve up the Philadelphia defense in the passing game as they did. I felt like it was going to be more run oriented. However, they did run the ball right now, and that was like one of the key points on this one. We did hit the Pacheco over on the rushing yards, and I felt like that felt easy. I was way wrong about AJ Brown and them getting down the ball down the field with Jalen Hurts on that one. I felt like his arm strength on that one was almost as 100% as he was earlier in the season. So it was one of those weird situations where I didn't really expect the game to go as high scoring as it was. I was glad it did because it kind of felt like I was watching the national championship in a college football game, which I love college football, and it became a little bit more exciting than it was on the previous Super Bowl with the Rams. I did feel like they really shoved the MVP into Mahomes just because it was a little bit more of a marketable, palatable the face of the NFL, so to speak. Like they're trying to like make Tom Brady was the face forever, and now you're trying to give the predecessor his well due. I mean, he had 182 yards passing, 6.7 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, no INTs. The key point on this one too, I didn't expect Philly's pass rush to not even give Pat Mahomes any pressure whatsoever.
Yeah.
And going back to that point, and this may be a hot take on this one. I know Pat Mahomes is a warrior. He played on a high ankle sprain. He played an absolute electric second half. They did a perfect thing. This is a question to you too, Shark, on this one. Here's the hot take. I think Pat Mahomes going to KC and being coached under Andy Reid was the best thing to ever happen to him. And it's the reason for his success, because I feel like if he went to a worse team, say, I don't know, the Houston Texans, or dealing with what Trevor Lawrence is dealing with now with the coaching carousel that he had to deal with. I think he's found his guy with Doug Peterson, who is under the umbrella of the Andy Reid coaching tree. But I think Andy Reid does not get enough credit where credit is due for how great of a coach he is, and how they respect Bill Belichick. I respect Bill Belichick to death, but I think Andy Reid doesn't get the respect that he deserves. So I think with me, and part of my cap was the coaching, that I was like, I'll take Andy Reid all day over a coach that's never been there and is inexperienced, including the offensive and defensive coordinator. I was like, do you have any thoughts on this one? Do you really think that, like, if Pat Mahomes was on, say, the Houston Texans, for example, do you think he'd be as successful as he is today?
That's a really good question. Really good question. I think no. I mean, I think he would be great, but probably not at this high of a level. And as you mentioned, I mean, I do think Andy Reid is really a legendary coach, and that's just what happens in professional sports when you are happen to fall into the same generation as the top of all time. I mean, you always talk about this, but players that played in '90s basketball, I mean, there were some absolute legends, but none of them really won any titles. Michael Jordan clean swept it basically, and this is a state of professional coaching. Bill Belichick is just at such a high level that Andy Reid has gone somewhat under the radar, but I think now he's definitely coming into his prime, and that's coaching in general. I mean, the guy's in his mid 60s and he's finally hitting his stride, and his public recognition is finally getting to that point. But I do think when you look at Patrick Mahomes, as you mentioned, getting the MVP, I don't think I would give it to anybody else. I mean, obviously Jalen Hurts probably did put a better statistical product on the field. I mean, he was far more impressive, actually. If you go through this, he was 27 for 38 for 304 yards and a touchdown, and of course 15 for 70 on the ground and 3 touchdowns, whereas Mahomes only had 182 in the air, 3 touchdowns, and 44 rushing yards. But I do think that's where the MVP is always going to go. I mean, you said it. There's nobody else you could give it to. If the Eagles had won, Hurts gets it. If the Chiefs win, which of course they did, Mahomes gets it. There's nobody really else on the Chiefs, I think, who you could have given it to. I mean, obviously, first touchdown of the game, Travis Kelce. Second touchdown, that fluky fumble, Nick Bolton, 36-yard fumble return. But, I mean, did that guy really do anything? Not really. That was a fluky play. I mean, Hurts kind of just lost the grip on the ball, I think. I mean, I think it's fluky. People are talking about slipping all over the field. but the ball looked kind of slippery in that environment, Guns. I mean, I was obviously as a bettor disgusted by that, and I think that really did flip the momentum. I mean, there was a chance that the Eagles could have gone up by, I mean, we're talking 21 plus points if that fumble didn't go down. So, I mean, I look at the game and I think you mentioned the coaching getting them over the hump, and I do think the coaching absolutely did get them over the hump in the second half. Two ways, too. Morale and bounce back in the locker room and the trust of the energy of the group and the scheme, which is largely Andy Reid, and also just the schematic adjustments to really come out in the second half and run a little bit more of a motion style offense. And of course, it worked impeccably well. I mean, they just played a really flawless second half of football. But I do think, regardless of how high quality Andy Reid is as a coach, motivationally and schematically, if a fluky play like that doesn't go down in the first half, I'm not sure Kansas City could come back if Jalen Hurts doesn't lay the ball on the ground in the first quarter there, or second quarter it was, 9 seconds. So I do think there's a lot of angles to consider, but that one really did stand out to me. And people weren't talking about it as much. They were obviously talking about the holding call in the end of the game. I really think that fluky fumble in the second quarter was really just a monumental play in the game, really.
Yeah, Leonard in the chat saying, "What's up, fellas?" Man, we got a lot of college basketball questions. We'll get to those in a second, so please stay with us in this one. But I want to talk about, you mentioned Nick Bolton on this one, the fumble recovery and the touchdown. I actually considered him as a potential, if they wanted to go a little bit outside the box, to go with Nick Bolton as the MVP. He led the team in tackles in that game. He had 9 tackles, 8 solo on that one. So granted, he didn't have a sack, and like he didn't have a lot of the big moneymaker type of plays on that one that would get him over the hump. I think it was right to give it to Mahomes on that one, just how he played as a warrior on that one, the storyline and everything going along with it. Another thing, let's bring up the holding call that was called back that really changed the game on this one, Pun. The play that everybody's talking about, whether it should have been called or whether it shouldn't have been. So everybody's seen this play, obviously, and it was just a wild call. Let's play this thing through.
Onto it. It's game. We're going to call that? It's game. The Chiefs now with 1:48 to go.
You can actually see it when you look at it close there, right there. So it wasn't, everybody saw the fade reaction call, which was basically more of a touch. That was the call that made him throw the flag, which was a great call. However, the pace of the game, and we can take that off the screen, Pun. The pace of the game at that point and what they were trying to establish there is like, we're going to not throw the flag as much and we're going to let him play. I mean, there was a hold that was even more egregious. Juju Smith-Schuster in the first half that should have been called on a 3rd and 14 with Mahomes that was never called. And if we actually sat down and broke down the tape from play to play, there probably was 5 or 6 others on both sides where they just kind of let things go. I just felt like in that moment to call a play like that in the situation that it was, I don't know. It takes balls to throw that flag. If you're calling a game a certain way and then you go the opposite direction all of a sudden, it feels disingenuous to the Eagles on that one. Do you feel the same way on that one, Shark?
Yeah, I mean, I like the way you phrased that, because I do think this type of conversation is just very difficult in general to discern, should they not call a penalty just because it's the final play of the game? Like, if you really hone in tunnel vision on what happened, it's a bit ludicrous to suggest that they shouldn't call a penalty just because it's in the final minute. And I think that's the narrative point. And I'm not saying I agree or I disagree with it, but that is the narrative point across professional sports in general. And of course, it is basketball and football mostly with the subjective foul calls and penalty calls. But I mean, it's a bit ridiculous to suggest that they should not call the correct call. But I do think when the way you put it into context there, that's the best way to put it. When they're calling a game a different way the entire time, and then they all of a sudden flip the way they're officiating in the final minute or two. That's what I disagree with. Call the game the same way for the entire 60-minute window. And then, as you mentioned, it won't be as disingenuous. And I do think, to a certain degree, I mean, obviously in the NFL, they rewrite the penalties almost every single offseason. But these penalties need to be a little more refined, because a play like that, again, the ball, in my opinion, was not really catchable. I mean, I understand you pull the jersey at the line of scrimmage or whatever that was, 3 yards off the line. It does impede the route. I certainly get that. But if you really look at how much it disrupted, which I don't think it was that big of a disruption on the route, and then you see where the ball landed, I don't think he had any shot to catch that, really.
No.
And I'll throw it back to you in just a sec. And we've seen this for years now, where quarterbacks truly get bailed out. Like, they just throw the ball in a direction. And it's like this whole catchable notion. I mean, like, just because I'm sitting here and I'm like blindfolded and throw the ball like just arbitrarily to the right side of the field doesn't mean it's a catchable ball. And then the penalty stands and the whole thing. I mean, there's no right answer here. I really don't think there's a right answer. This is professional sports. It's subjective. I mean, it's always going to be subjective. There's always going to be controversy surrounding it. I don't think there's a right answer here, but I think the best way to put it is how you put it. If you're going to call the game a certain way for 58 minutes, call it the same way for 60 minutes.
Yeah, and Razor brought it up. He's like, the play was a hold. And it's like, we're not disagreeing that the play was a hold. It's definitely a hold. As like no way, shape, or form. I mean, the corner even said it himself. He's like, yeah, I held him. It's like, but you could have said, like, he was like, I've been doing this all game. I was doing it with Schuster. I was doing it this way. It's like, we were all doing it in that one, because that's how they were calling the game. So I think a lot of these players play to the mentality of like how the refs are throwing flags at the time. But I think also, if I was a defensive coordinator, I was like, we're getting down to the wire. The game's getting close. I was like, we have to be a little bit more cautious about what we're doing. And one of the things that Andy Reid did as an adjustment in the second half, and granted, you didn't really see much of the KC offense in the first half, so you didn't really have any gauge or adjustments that you had to do defensively, is they used the motion, and they basically looked and discovered that instead of the corner following the receiver all the way through, what they were doing switches, which is called a rock. So they were basically taking the corner and they make the corner the safety, and he was just stepping back, and then the safety would step up on the other side and just take the receiver, so they wouldn't get any of those wide receiver screens, those dink and dunks. So what Andy Reid noticed, or Bieniemy or whoever, they did what is called, like, I call it equivalent to a backdoor cut in basketball. So instead of running through the screen knowing they're going to switch, you hedge back and then you backdoor them. And they were getting guys wide open consistently on that one. But they were also not just doing it randomly. They were going through, like on a first down, they would just run this wide receiver all the way through, knowing that it was going to be an incomplete pass on Pat Mahomes. And like, some of the brilliance of what Andy Reid did in this one, I was like, this is like a la Belichick, watching like how he desecrated the LA Rams, that were one of the top defenses at the time, and they were in their offenses, and like saying like, or the offense, like, we're just gonna bump the receiver like so he can't get his out routes or anything like that, or get those long throws. It's like it's stuff like that, those intangibles that you don't see. But if you have knowledge of football and you watch that and you just go, oh my God, that is just absolutely brilliant what they did there. And credit to the KC Chiefs on that one. It was a good game overall. It could have gone either way. So for me to win the me versus Shark, I think if we actually tallied all the plays together, Shark may be up 1. I was like, I'm definitely not up, but I may be at 50-50. That's kind of like what I feel like right now. But like, tremendous season for the show. I loved it, and I can't wait to run it back next year with the Sports Wagering Network. Absolutely brilliant. Before we get into basketball talk, though, let's take a break. Let's take a breather and honor our sponsor, Viva Tequila Seltzers. Run the clip, fun.
This podcast is sponsored by
Viva Tequila Seltzers. As I take a sip of my Viva. Delicious. Viva Tequila Seltzers is a refreshing and drinkable hard seltzer. 88 calories, 0 carbs, 0 sugar, 4.5 ABV. Viva is the perfect drink for your post-game celebrations as it was created with the active lifestyle in mind. Viva flavors their tequila perfectly because flavor is the spice of life, and they like their drinks with a little bit of a kick as we like to live our lives. Viva flavors perfectly with their artisanal Blanco tequila for a subtle and refreshing drink. Their belief is to live long, live well, and live it up. Hashtag Viva Up. And make sure you check them out on Twitter at Viva Seltzers. And you can also order the product online at www.vivaseltzers.com as we get back into regular flow. Pun, let's talk basketball, shall we? Now we're talking about the late night slate. I want to start here first. I want to give Shark his proper NBA talk, or college basketball for that matter. But this game starts at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on this one, so I want to make sure I get this play out properly. I'm going to be talking about the St. Mary's game tonight. They're going against San Diego, and I'm going to be taking St. Mary's minus 13.5 at Jenny Craig Pavilion. I just showed up in the stadium and lost 10 pounds. San Diego, California style, and I'm going with, like I said, St. Mary's minus 13.5, 1 unit special. Let me tell you what's going on this one. Just an absolute complete mismatch. St. Mary's is one of the best teams, arguably statistically, in the country. St. Mary's ranked 32nd in offensive efficiency, 5th on the defensive efficiency side. When you look at San Diego, they're ranked 345th in defensive efficiency, 57th in offensive efficiency. Now, San Diego will struggle getting the boards on this one. They're 189th in offensive rebounds, where SMC excels at giving you only one shot before they go into transition, ranked second in the country in defensive rebounds. Also, you got to look at St. Mary's on this one, ranked 22nd in offensive rebounds, where San Diego is ranked 214th in the country. So if there's anything that San Diego is going to have to deal with on this one, they better be making their shots versus the St. Mary's team that's playing absolutely red hot. The biggest mismatch that I've seen on the card on this one, statistically, you got to look at St. Mary's. They're ranked 40th in three-point percentage. San Diego is ranked 363rd in defending shots. Now St. Mary's has covered 7 out of the last 8 versus San Diego. They also covered the first matchup in December, 85-58. As 15.5 point favorites. Now they're sitting here at minus 13.5, minus 14. You should see like a 3 to 4 point swing on most games, and that usually I call that the sharp move. But sometimes you see the 6 point move or the 7 point move, which would lead me to believe the revenge is there and San Diego's going to be prime. But not with St. Mary's here, folks. St. Mary's had an egregious loss versus Lower Marymount not too long ago. So I don't think they're going to be regressing versus the San Diego team. I think they're going to step their game up on this one. This should be an easy cover. So give me St. Mary's minus 13.5, and it starts in 3 minutes. So get on it now. Shark, what do you got for us on the card tonight for the late night bangers?
Well, I think that's an intelligent point. Obviously, we talked about the line functionality and college basketball, the conference season specifically. That is a strong line for St. Mary's. Obviously, they did demolish San Diego earlier this year, December the 29th. Not this year, last year, 2022. What a campaign it was. But college basketball has not been good to me, and I will say this. It's only been good to me because I haven't really put out enough plays. I mean, I lost one play the other night, and it was the only game the contrarian side out of 4 didn't hit when Kansas obviously chalked it up like they've been doing all the year on the road on these short lines. But I do think, and I'm not giving this out officially, guys, it's just some commentary on the college basketball board. I do think your St. Mary's side there has some merit. I do think an interesting one that I was looking at a little earlier, Iowa in the Big Ten, laying 6.5, 7 now, it looks like, against Ohio State. This is just a very, very good line number for Iowa. They're in a revenge game. They somehow lost to Ohio State. Ohio State is having one of their worst conference seasons in decades here at 3-11 straight up. One of those wins was against Iowa at home. And I believe in that game, Ohio State was a 3.5, 4-point favorite. So you're getting a roughly 9.5, 10.5 gap here. And it's really speaking to just how poor Ohio State is here tonight. I think if you guys are looking to gamble on this, I wouldn't talk you off Iowa here at 9 o'clock in the Big Ten in Iowa City, Iowa. And Guns, do you want to talk about the other play real quick? The late night spot, the Loyola Marymount play.
It's funny because that was a slack play for me. I'm on Iowa, so I mean, I think it's the perfect spot. And I think the line transition on this one, Ohio State's just one of those teams you just can't back. I mean, they just don't cover spreads. But yeah, let's talk about the next play on the board here. 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's the late night degenerate special. You have Gonzaga going on the road versus Loyola Marymount University at Gershkin Pavilion, Los Angeles, California. And we're going with LMU on this one. Now, LMU has lost the 3 out of the last 4, but their one win in that, I'm talking straight up, that one win was versus St. Mary's. Like I said, a team that I'm going to be backing when we get to the tournament level on this one. I think they're a team that's really not talked about enough. They've actually made Gonzaga look like they're like I don't know. Just an 8 seed in the NCAA tournament, but they're coming off a close loss versus Santa Clara in their last game, but they've covered the last 2. So this is a team that maybe not getting the wins, but I call them the pesky team. So you have to look at that one. Now Gonzaga's coming off a home win versus BYU, but they're 4-6 against the spread in their last 10. Gonzaga's also 1-7 against the spread on the road, so they don't get up on the road where Loyola gets up on at home. 16-5 against the spread in their last 21 home games. Also, LMU has covered 3 out of the last 4 versus Gonzaga with a straight up win in their last game. So I think if there's any argument on this one, it is a revenge spot for Gonzaga. But when you look at the line correlation, it just doesn't match up on this one because they were 16.5-point road dogs when they got that straight up win. Now they're sitting here at +9. So there is a humongous line swing in the opposite direction. And then it makes sense with LMU on this one because they've covered 3 out of the last 4. So it really doesn't matter where the line's going to be sitting for them. Gonzaga, good offense. LMU's defense is suspect at best. So there is a little bit of mismatch there. But when you actually look at the other side of the ball with LMU's offense versus Gonzaga's defense, they're ranked. LMU's ranked 89th in offensive efficiency, where Gonzaga's ranked 93rd in defensive efficiency. So the defense on the Gonzaga side has really hurt them all year long. Where LMU is ranked 48th in field goal percentage, Gonzaga is ranked 258th in defending shots overall. So they don't defend the ball well. They give you a lot of open shots. So that's going to play well in an LMU team that's going to be really pumped up to play this Gonzaga team. LMU is also ranked 53rd in three-point percentage, where Gonzaga defending the 3, 229th in the country. So I think it's gonna be. I think Gonzaga is going to get their points. I think they're going to score a lot on this one, but LMU is just going to respond right back and keep this game really close on this one. So I'm going to go with LMU +9 as my late night degenerate special of the day. Doggy style.
Yeah, and I think, just cross-referencing a couple points, and I want to shout a couple guys in the chat. Sammy Comer, what's going on, brother? What's up? I got Mach. Tell us how to pronounce that. Absurd call up and play football.
He watches everything on this channel. He is our guy, and I mispronounce his name every single time.
And of course, Michael Buelna, you got to tell us how to pronounce that as well. And Marcelo Gaudia, what's going on, brother? Absolutely, we love to bring you this content on a suddenly not so casual Thirsty Thursday. It is going down, and staying course with this particular game. I think a really good point here. You're talking about these late night games. We just talked about it with the St. Mary's game. This is very interesting stuff where, again, you don't have to know anything about these teams. You can just cross-reference line dynamics. St. Mary's at home laying 15.5, goes on the road and lays 14.5, almost the same line. So they're telling you St. Mary's strength. Gonzaga at home lays 16.5, goes on the road, lays 8.5. So they're telling you Gonzaga weakness. And I think when you look at Loyola Marymount here, some of these teams, and Guns Picks, of course, did have Middle Tennessee State correctly just now, just Cash. He and I had discussed that off the record. That was a great
one outright, by the way, as a dog. One outright.
Absolutely. That was a great fate of a way too hot FAU team in a revenge game there. But you look at this in this particular environment, this is where college basketball teams really do take on home to road, essentially bipolar nature. and you start to really look at Loyola Marymount here, this team is 4-0 straight up in home game one, coming off a previous road game in conference. And that doesn't matter if they won the previous road game or lost. You go back to Thursday, January 5th, outright win against BYU, 64-59. Saturday, January 14th, blowout of the aforementioned San Diego, 98-84. Slightly later on Thursday night, January 26th. See what I'm doing here as well? Thursday night home game. This is what it is, Thursday night, February 16th. Another real hammer zone win against Portland, 79-60. And most recently, last Thursday on February 9th, very impressive win against St. Mary's, ranked St. Mary's 15 in the country, 78-74 overtime. So even though this is a revenge game for Gonzaga, which does hold some merit motivationally speaking, I do think this line is telling you that direct story. Loyola Marymount, you may never have heard of them before, but they're a damn good home team in this particular calendar year. And this line is short for a reason. So I think, Guns, you're onto something very sharp here.
Yeah, I mean, like for some reason, like the late night bangers, anything from 10 on, I've seemed to be able to like know these teams real well. And granted, like I watch maybe a few minutes here and there because but I don't want to watch the whole game a lot like I do with football, because I think if you get the eyeball test on a lot of these games, you get a little bit more diluted on the fact that like, oh, this team played good this game, so they're going to play well. They have the momentum right now. It's like it's game to game basis. I mean, you look at Purdue right now. Purdue is ranked third in the country right now, and they just got the doors blown off a Maryland team that just plays well at home. It's like sometimes you just kind of look at the numbers and understand, look at the box scores and understand where these teams are coming from, and really the books know more than we do. So if you see line correlation or line fluctuation, that's the brilliance right now in February, is like these teams are meeting each other for the second time around. So you'll see the fluctuation in the line from home versus away. I mean, if there's a big difference, that should tell you something. I think with basketball, in college basketball, at least in my opinion, I think anywhere between 2 to 4 points is a sharp swing from home versus away. If you're dealing with a team, I was like, well, I mean, some teams have trends where they just consistently beat the other team, so that kind of falls into play as well. But I mean, when you see line swings of like 8 or 9 points or 12 points or something like that, I was like, that should be a storyteller for you to take like a favorite or a dog or whatever as it may. Those are just teaching points on this one with college basketball. You don't have to know anything about college basketball. You can just click the button. Like you can go to a website like Covers or Scores and Odds. They give you the information there. Just click the box and just look at the numbers. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. No, actually, it's interesting. Our guy here, Pionio. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, so I apologize. But says, need you guys to tell during March Madness. I don't know enough myself. And you guys know when we recap winning and we talk about this, we're not bragging. We're not trying to bloat our ego. We're just telling you purely what our abilities are so you can tell us. Go back 3 seasons ago. Again, I don't really follow college basketball. I actually did win a college NCAA bracket madness where you had to pick games, ATS, and totals, and I did it all numerically. It's all numbers. And within the NCAA tournament specifically, I think very fascinating stuff that you can really do is just cross-reference how Vegas will lay a number between seeds. So just small conversation here. If you see a 7 seed in one corner of the bracket laying 4.5 points to a 10, and then in the other corner of the bracket, you see a 7 seed laying 1 point to a 10, just based on the seeding and the expectancy of the seeding and then the Vegas line, you would take the 4.5 as a favorite and you would take the +1 as a dog. It's very basic stuff, but you're just looking at discrepancies in terms of what the line is telling you. Because again, that's why March Madness is so difficult to handicap, because not only is it very sharply graded, generally speaking, but these are all out-of-conference games and they're one-offs in neutral sites at funky tip times. And we talk about this all the time, but sports books make the most money they will ever make when the public all of a sudden decides to come out of their hibernation and say, I'm going to throw, thousands of dollars on some marquee event. And there's no better event than March Madness, weekend 1 particularly. And I know Vegas absolutely cleans up on the public, not only people who are visiting there, but in sports books. on the internet because people have no idea what they're looking at. They do not cap numerically. They look at players and they look at coaches, and then they say this team's going to win this game and cover this spread, having no understanding that this coach and this player has absolutely nothing to do with a 7.5-point line number. And, we've been talking about this obviously for 4 or 5 years now. We're never going to stop because as more people start getting into sports betting, as it becomes legalized, of course, in the United States and internationally, there's just more and more people, millions and millions, and eventually perhaps billions of people who are going to be betting sports as sports fans, not truly understanding the numerical aspect to the averaging of sports betting. So just a great conversation there. And thanks for that question. We're going to definitely be doing some deep analytical conversations. Guns, we should do a show before each week of the NCAA tournament on here and go through the bracket, and maybe not drop official plays on every game, of course, because that's a gigantic project and ridiculous financial sweat. But to go through each game and really analyze how the line correlates to the dynamic and the whole thing, I think that's actually a really good idea. So thanks for the question. We'll get in there. Guns picks. Let's move it.
Let's move it on. Actually, I have to do that. I'm actually going to be in Syracuse, New York on that one at Turning Stone Casino. So we'll have to do that on site, but I plan on bringing the podcast gear with me so we can actually do some content on that one. That's actually a good idea. We should actually talk about that one. Anything on the NBA? I know you've been really sweating some stuff on the NBA. You and Philly. If you go check him out as well, though. He's a really good capper on the NBA, but he works with the Shark on collaborations. You see anything on the late night slate on the West Coast?
Yeah, we got one top play. I didn't do a show today because we were coming on here, and of course, people probably wanted to hear that on Twitter. So, of course, you're hearing it now, 9:11 Eastern. We're taking the Clippers on the road at +1. And you really look at this game. This is not a highly, highly complicated cap here. Of course, this is the last game of the first half. It's a national game. It is on TNT. I'm excited to watch it, but you do find very, very good angles, both numerically and psychologically in this game. This is the third game this year played between the Clippers and the Suns. The Suns have gotten them twice, both on the road early season. And of course, for those of you who have followed the Clippers, the load management is very real. And the load management of the load management, it's just going on and on and on. It's so intense with these guys, but they are playing their guys tonight. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, most specifically and most importantly. And the line is telling you a great, great story here. Double revenge game. First game this year, Phoenix was laying 1 point on the road in crypto.com. Did hammer them by double digits. Then it came up with significance, still on the road to -6.5. Now you come home. You've already beaten this team by margin twice. This should come up to 9.5, 10 if the same weighting and expectancy was supposed to repeat itself tonight. It's moving in the complete opposite direction. This should be, again, roughly -10. It comes all the way over. Clippers were actually opened at -1 or -2 in most books. Peak motivation, incredibly good number. And again, this is where the Clippers really are going to start to perform at a totally different level than they did in those previous games without their players. And one final point here, if you go to the playoff race, I'm going to pull it up real quick. We had talked about this yesterday when we took the Sixers to beat the Cavs because that was where they were right next to each other in the playoff race. This is where you can start to cap motivation. Motivation in NBA basketball is a bit inconsistent and abstract over the first 50 to 60 games because truly the guys just don't care sometimes. Now you get games like this where they will care, and it's specific to the seeding. Currently, Phoenix is 32-27 for the 4 seed, and the Clippers are 32-28, just a half game back for the 5 seed. And this is the same thing you saw last night with the Philadelphia game against Cleveland. These teams need these games. They do not want to go on the road for Game 7 environments, most likely in the second round against each other. They purely don't. Motivation is there. Double revenge motivation is there. Line number is there. First time all year, you're getting the real Clippers on the court. National game. We're taking it for 1 unit +1 official.
Bang, boom, pow. Let's give him a boom on that one. Boom. Or we give him a cash and baby. Man, what a goddamn show. But I want to tell everybody that the future of the Sports Wagering Network, or you can call it the SWN, you can call it the Sharky Waters Nation. I don't care what you call this channel. Just don't call me late for dinner, as they say. I think this is going to be an absolute electric collaboration for the YouTube channel, and I want you guys to all be a part of it. This is the information that we give. We don't only just throw out picks and don't tell you why because this team's awesome or this team's bad. It's like, no, we actually tell you exactly how we cap a game and how we actually look at stuff. So maybe I was like, it's almost like the mentor teaches the student, or maybe you guys already know how to do it yourself. And we actually want you to put out your analysis and your arguments if you agree or disagree with the picks as well. So I'm glad that we can do that for you, and we will continue doing that for you all year long in 2023. Shark, now that we're officially SWN or Sports Wagering Network, what can we expect from you moving forward into 2023?
Well, a lot. I mean, we're going to be starting NBA shows on YouTube after the All-Star break, and we're going to really try to build this network up. And we know it takes time. It takes consistency. But I know people really, really do enjoy the Periscope chats and the Twitter live chats. Of course, Twitter did buy Periscope, I believe, a year and a half ago or whatever it was. But we know this format is excellent, and we're going to be doing a ton of work with Guns Picks. Dabby Cab also involved. Shout out to Dabby, one of our guys, great human being. And, of course, Pun Picks producing, and Anthony Latino, our third guy for the NFL show, will be doing a lot of content on here as well. So, guys, definitely spread the word about this particular YouTube channel. And, of course, subscribe, because we're trying to build this at the highest level. And you'll be getting the top-level content from me, Guns, and some of our other guys. And if you guys want to work with us, I always say this, don't message us and say something. Take the action yourself. Put out content yourself. We'll see it. Send us a video, a commentary, or, a take on a game, and then we'll really see, will you function well with us on the air? Because doing live shows is essentially, it has nothing to do with knowing how to handicap, really. It's an energy, it's a conversational point. So a lot of people conflate that. They'll send me messages and they say, Shark, I'm on a heater, I'm crushing this, and that. Let me come on the show. And I'm like, bro, you could literally be up $10 million in the last month. That doesn't mean it translates to a good on-air broadcast. So if you guys want to get on here with us, we want to bring people on. Sharky Waters Nation, Sports Wagering Network, we are trying to bring content providers and talented people in here. Do the work yourself, put it out there. We'll bring you in. We want to bring in great people, and we want to spread this at the highest level. So Guns Picks, thanks for hosting me tonight. Pun Picks, thanks for the production, and let's dominate.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the show, folks. I'm like, you heard all the picks on this one. So if you're on the late night show, we already missed the SMC if you just joined us now. And with us, I mean, St. Mary's on that one. But you still have time to get on the 11 p.m. late night bangers on this one with Loyola Marymount. And then Shark obviously gave you a few plays as well, especially in the NBA. It looks like we're going to be on the Clips tonight on that one. So thanks for Shark. Thanks for co-hosting with me today. I appreciate you immensely, and you'll probably see him more on the DadBodd stuff. But I want to have a good circulation of cappers on this one. I have and we'll have some just guests at Abnor. I got some guests that have never been on DadBods that are coming up here in March. So I'm excited for that one. So till next time on DadBods 112. Thank you for joining us for 111. 111 shows of the DadBods channel, and it's on the Sports Wagering Network. So till next time, next Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll say good luck with your bets, and as always, let's keep dancing. Pun close enough.